think that goes back to the framework concept. Those tools that help you create something new. That was an engine for creating games. GarageBand is an engine for kind of creating music, right? And we've created this thing called Max, which is a framework for creating robotics applications. So it made it easy for us to create these driverless cars and all this kind of stuff. And that kind of goes back to that earlier question. Does an industry like autonomous vehicles or like robotics or certainly like personal computing did, and maybe like gaming, because there's all these game engines out there, right? Do you need that to really have that prolific sort of boom, to go from the desert of trial and error and trying this and trying that to that industry really just taking off? Do you need those kinds of frameworks or platforms, middleware or engines, game engines or robotics engines or whatever you want to call them, to make things really take off? Because I wonder if that's what's sort of impeded our space, like autonomy and not having that.
I think what you've done is a remarkably good job in a very, very difficult space, because it's highly regulated. It's on the expensive side, so you're not going to get the individual early adopter, because you're playing in the $300,000-$400,000 price range kind of place. And so you have a obstacle of size, and you have the obstacle of the people that are in those environments. They tend to not be early adopters. And so
right.
as you increasingly prove efficacy, the more and more you will get people who are initially timid and now less so. And for every early adopter, there are 20 less early, but still earlier.
Right.
And then there's 1,000. So it grows exponentially in terms of their ability to take on risk. And so once you get past phase 1 and start moving into phase 2, you have the chance for explosive growth.
Interesting. And that goes back to, in some ways, there's a lot of ups and downs. It's, autonomy, I will say, the autonomous vehicle space just feels like it has been very hard. And I don't know if I don't know if I'm being like,
no, it's
if
hard.
I'm like complaining about it, if I'm whining or something, and if I should just shut up and take
it's
it.
Okay. It's okay to whine as long as you don't let it get you down. There's a difference between whining and depression.
Right. Well, I've been doing it for 20 years. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's grit.
It's grit, Paul. You've got grit.
See, my mom would say it was just stubbornness. She said I was a hard-headed Calabrese because that was where my father's side of the family came from, Calabria, Italy.
Okay. See, I think grit is a good thing.
Okay. I mean, you have to have toughness. You have to have relentlessness, because there's just so many ups and downs. You're just sometimes on the throes of things just not working out. It's not going to go well. And, what are you going to do?
The future is unpredictable.
Yeah.
And that's actually one thing I kind of worry about. I think a lot of the kids that are growing up right now are really fragile. They're offended at things and they don't want to be challenged. And, being confronted with uncomfortable ideas, that's the nature of entrepreneurship. I mean, I'd like to think that entrepreneurs are a little bit anarchists. You got to have a little bit of anarchy in you, because you have to believe that what is is insufficient and that you want to break it up a little bit.
Yeah. If it can be very uncomfortable and very lonely at times.
Yeah.
I think. But people like stories, right? I mean, stories are kind of how like
Right.
we've evolved as human beings, right? You know, we used to, it's like that's what everything was, a story and a metaphor, it seems like, right? Back in the really, really, really old days. And so
Yeah.
like that's just how we're programmed. And so we need some stories of toughness and relentlessness that stand out, that might be, you know, instructional for kids today, right? Who lack these lessons.
One of the stories that I like to tell is, I said, imagine that I came to you and I said, I want to build a pizza parlor. It's 10 times bigger than any pizza parlor you've ever seen. Why is it 10 times bigger? Well, because I want to have a lot of games in it. Oh, why? Well, it takes time for pizza to be cooked, and that's a good time when people could go in and play games. And I'm in the coin-op business, and I know about games, and we were selling games for about $2,000, but in coin drop, over their life, they'll earn $30,000, $40,000. So clearly, it'd be better to be operating the games than to be buying and selling them. I said, well, maybe that makes sense. And I said, but wait, we're also going to have singing, joke-telling, robotic animals. Raising money for that, can you believe? That was a little bit tough.
I mean, yeah, I could see that. It was kind of like it was very Disney-esque, right? The animatronics and what have you, but trying to do it like everywhere. I'm sure that was a tough one. I mean, can you like recount like a specific thing and like a story in the early days or something where everything just like all hope was lost, it was all insurmountable, and then you know you were just amazed to have overcome it and made it out alive?
Two instances I remember. First of all, when I started working on the video game, my idea was to interface with a mini computer. And so I didn't, I found a computer that I could get stripped down and buy it for about $6,000. It's a lot of money in those days. But I felt that I could figure out a way to hook those up to a monitor and create 2 or 3 games. And the idea was, in order to make the math work, I needed 3 screens with a coin slot on it. And I knew what they had to earn because I worked at the amusement park, and so I had a rough idea of what the economics of a coin-operated game was. And I kept running out of time. And it was the Thanksgiving weekend, and I determined that I was going to solve the time problem because I kept running out of time. The computer had a blistering speed of 800 kilohertz clock speed. And of course, video wants 3.58 megahertz. So I was building these little interface things, and I was trying to unload things off the computer with little circuits. And the night before Thanksgiving, I basically said, this isn't working. I'm done. Abandon time. I'll just have a good weekend. Something happened from the time I went to sleep that night until I woke up on Thanksgiving Day. And I said, I'm going to do it all in hardware. I don't need the computer. I think I know a way that I can do it all with these little Boolean chipsets. And I actually had a spot moving around the screen by the end of that 4-day weekend.
Fantastic. So it just took one night of sleep.
Evidently.
A good night of sleep. I mean, it's undervalued.
Well, your hind mind can process sometimes 20, 30 variables. Your foremind, you're really lucky if you can do 4 or 5. And so what you're doing when you sleep is you're unlinking your hind mind, your subconscious, to work on problems. That's why I actually purposefully think about a problem that I'm struggling with before I go to sleep every night, because I want my hind mind to work on it.
I remember in college, I decided I was just going to push it and see how long I could stay up. It was like more than 2 days. And I was drinking so much coffee that I was like getting dry heaves from like each cup I was drinking. It was bad. And so I didn't do so well. I remember that semester as much on the tests I was cramming for.
You know, I've got a college story that I think is amusing, but I was cramming for finals. And in those days, there was this thing that you could buy pills from one of my fraternity brothers called Dexedrine.
Dexedrine.
Like okay. Adderall, you know. And,
oh, okay.
And so I was up probably 48-hour period. And I finished my last exam, and I was going to school at Utah State. And driving home, they have a big canyon there. And as I was driving down the canyon, after 48 hours of no sleep, I was identifying, one of the classes that I had was Navy ROTC. And one of the things was identifying outlines of ships, friend or foe. You know, they were like silhouettes.
Yeah.
And driving down the canyon, I was identifying ships on the side of the canyon, friend or foe. And I got through the canyon, and I thought, I was hallucinating that. Those ships weren't there.
That sounds like good stuff. Dexedrine. I don't know. No.
It was you know, one of the characteristics of sleep deprivation is actually schizophrenia, where you see things that aren't there, you hear things that aren't there, you're responding. That's where you get paranoia and people, you know, talking at the sky.
Yeah. No, it's not good. I've learned that lesson. But I learned it too late. I remember even like the DARPA Grand Challenge. You know about it was like the first race across the Mojave Desert of autonomous vehicles. Well, it wasn't so much a race. It was a challenge.
But you were so ahead of your time then.
Well, it was, I think, you remember when you said you were early to something, some things? It was definitely early. And it showed with this egg-shaped vehicle that we had built, and it was autonomous. And we didn't have any drivers in it back then because it was the desert, and why not? Right. But those were the early days. That's really what started. You know, the DARPA, the arm of the Pentagon, right, deserves a lot of credit for really like lighting the fire that made the autonomous vehicle space what it is.
Well, yeah. NASA, you know, we wouldn't have Tang. We didn't.
Right. Yeah. Or Spam.
No, I think we had Spam before that.
Oh, we did? Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Someone else gets that claim to fame. I hope you enjoyed the show Driven with me, Paul Perrone, your host. Don't forget to check us out at driven.show on the web and give us a thumbs up or subscribe here if you like the show. Thank you for listening in. See you soon.